We'll start the meeting. All right. All right, this is August 25th. It is 7:04 p.m. This is the St. Mark Street Park Working Group. We have a full quorum except for Bill Sines, who is getting on, and we also have Michael Klutchman, who is here to present from VHB. What I would like to do, I'm looking at the agenda. The first agenda item is to review and approve the minutes of the meetings of July 28th and August 4th. I would like to move that to item number 4. And I would like to begin with the presentation from the VHB landscape architect, who is Michael, of the potential designs for the St. Mark Street Park. If that is all right with everyone.
Marguerite, can I just jump in for 1 second?
Yes.
A point of information that has some bearing here.
You are breaking up for me.
Oh, sorry. How is it now? Can everyone hear okay?
Yeah.
Okay, just a quick point of information, because it has some bearing here, is that I received just after 5 today an email from Greg Walwer at the Archaeological Consulting Services. That's the firm doing the dig. It was sent to me and Rob Kukovich at St. Mark's. And the news is that they have tentatively scheduled September 1st and 2nd, that is next Thursday and Friday, for shovel tests. Those are the sort of grid-like periodic, test holes. And then September 7th through 9th, which is, they're going to do shovel tests next Thursday and Friday before Labor Day weekend. And then coming back from Labor Day weekend, that September 7th is Wednesday. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the 7th through the 9th, for the work with the heavy equipment. And he also says, they'll be setting up some cones and caution tape to try to keep folks out of the work area, because they know there's a great deal of interest. So I just wanted to update you all that now the archaeological work is scheduled. September 1st and 2nd for shovel test, September 7th through 9th for the scraping. So, okay, thank you.
That's great. Did he give you any idea of how long it would take to get a written report, or any kind of news about what his findings are?
Well, yeah, Gray had previously said to me, and I had reported to various groups, that they'll know in fairly short order whether there's something there. The formal written document that they'll present to their client, which is St. Mark's, might take as much as a month afterwards. But he'll have a pretty good, what he's previously told to me is that he'll have a pretty good sense in fairly short order if there's anything there or not to be concerned about. So it's good news.
Good, thank you, Kevin. That's excellent news. That is just exactly what we were all wondering. I'm wondering if we probably won't meet before the 9th of September. Any way to communicate what he finds to us? Could that be done?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, I just so
or
far.
Do you want to wait until our next meeting?
Yeah, this is just 2 hours ago. I thanked him for the information, and but certainly, he's been very responsive. So I'm sure he will first convey to his client what they find, and then he's been great about talking to me about it. So, and then I'll pass it along, and I'm sure he'll, I've already invited him to come back to historical, and he can, we'll set something up to get the information out, whatever it is. But, like I said, in about a week, we'll be on the cusp of getting some answers at long last. So that I'm very encouraged.
That's great. That's great news. I know there are a lot of moving parts in this, so to speak. Okay, so we'll wait to hear something back, even if you haven't heard anything back, that's what we'll hear back. Is there any objection to moving the minutes approval to the end of the meeting?
No.
Okay.
We might as well just table them because there are no minutes to approve.
All right. Do we have to vote, Andrew? Do we have to vote on tabling minutes? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
All right,
Well,
if
we
that's
would
okay
just,
with it,
I would say maybe we'll deal with it at the end.
fine. All right, let's deal with the whole minute issue at the end. If it's okay with everyone, and thank you for the update, Kevin, can we move forward with the with Michael's presentation? I think,
Yes.
Okay.
Michael, you're on.
Okay. That's right.
And let me make you a co-host. So
A
if you want to
co-host,
share
right.
your screen, you can.
Yeah.
So that,
Yeah. I think I'm able to right now. Let me. All right. Nope, that's not the right window. Okay. Okay. Are you seeing a plan now?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so this was 3 weeks ago we met, and you gave me a lot of great work you've already done, thoughts, ideas, and so I went away and focused on how can I sort of organize some of the ideas and into a couple or 3 layouts here, optional layouts. The idea is to sort of look at different ways
Michael,
to,
excuse me.
yeah,
I'm really sorry, and I just want to do this there are 5 or 6 or 7
yeah,
people who are watching. I just wanted to say that the working group, having had 14 meetings, came up with a list of priorities, which we hashed over for about a month and a half, and gave Michael this list of priorities, which was things that each of us coming from our different fields, which we had historical, we had library, we had Board of Selectmen, we had open space, we had accessibility. We all came together. We came up with a 4-page document that had what each of us had voted for as desirable for the park. And then we gave that to Michael and 3 weeks ago, and now he has come up with these designs. So
no,
sorry, I'll
yeah,
be quiet.
no, that's great. No, thank you for yeah, people who hadn't had that background. I'm sure that's very helpful. And I'll, yeah, sort of to back up a little bit, what they're really, there's a couple sort of themes that came out of there. So I'll just sort of back up that there was this idea that the park, part of the park would be a memorial to, I believe we called it marginalized people who were marginalized in their burials in town, who had lived in town. So this is uh, pre-European, the Nipmucks and other tribal folks. And then, you know, you talked about slaves, indentured servants, people who maybe had different religions and things who may have not been in the historic cemetery. So sort of, and I know you have the parallel track of doing a little further archaeological work to see, you know, if in fact there are remains or evidence on the site. So that's going on as well. But I think that all brought up the idea that there really should be a memorial aspect, if you will. It doesn't have to be a traditional memorial to this park. The other sort of definitely strong themes are the idea of making this a sustainable, native planting, sort of environmentally sensitive. And then part of that was one major theme is having landmark trees as part of the park. And as we talked last time, we came up with the idea of like, what's the program? What will the park be used for? And I believe we got to the end of the last meeting, really having the idea of having a space where people can occupy, have seating, tables, and also relate to the library and programming there. So, you know, as it sits between, you know, St. Mark's and the library, and then part of the historic sort of circuit around town, it became important to have this cultural and environmental themes going on. And then we also talked a lot about how the park would be a connector itself, but also connect to the new sidewalks, both the ones being built along the new parking lot, but also the idea that it would be part of the idea of a larger history walk that was discussed that would connect some of the historic parts of downtown. So those are all sort of pieces that were coming together. So what we have here on screen is one concept plan that brings into some of those elements. So we'll start with the landmark tree grove. One of the questions we had was, the idea of we really wanted a large landmark tree with a space around it. This photo in the middle here was one that you provided to me. This is in Natick and Elm Bank, and showed not only a large landmark tree, but also one with space around it. So the question is, could we have more than one? How many could we have? What's the spacing? So these are five landmark trees. They're spaced between 45 and 50 feet apart, which is a good distance, and it'll take a while for them to really do their thing. But that is, we can always make them closer, but that is the idea. So that they're drawn to scale on this plane around 30 feet. So they will have space to grow. The idea is to put them in this circular grove, if you will. And so that's starting with the sort of the backbone of the trees. Then we've also worked in our path system. And without going back to the earlier design, part of the thoughts there, that there are connections up at the top here to a new crosswalk, and that the slope in the existing site made it so that to be ADA accessible, we couldn't have sort of a straight shot across the park. So the idea is that there would be a looping path that would allow you to get up grades slowly. So there would be an accessible pathway through the park and also as a connector. In this version, we've put a flexible open lawn space in the oval in the center. It will have a little bit of a pitch, but it's flat enough for, an exercise class, outdoor story time or something like that. In the middle, maybe a small get together. And in the bottom, in the bottom right is where we placed our sort of hard plaza, and also that is in this one where I thought we could incorporate the idea of memorial. So it's concentrated in the plaza, different examples, but when we start talking about the memorial, I'll go a little bit on a tangent here, but I want to just keep sort of running through the options. Is the character of the memorial to this sort of theme could take lots of forms. I do think there are lots of great examples where quotes or text or poetry is carved into stone, and I really feel it's a very appropriate gesture for this particular park, being connected to the library and history. So I really think it'd be a great way to have some words and whatever incorporated into the landscape. That being said, if it wants to be more abstract in a mound or a special wall, that's also, I think, appropriate. But I am in this case saying that, okay, let's consider the memorial being stones or quotes that are placed in the pavement. It's just as one option. Also in this option, we have there's room for some native flowering trees as another understory layer, as well as in the previous design, there were a couple rain garden locations that the infrastructure is already in the ground. So we're keeping those, and then we're pointing out that there really is this low point down to the parking lot. So we're expanding that network of rain gardens with some drainage infrastructure for overflow, so that it would cross under the pathway, but really you'd have a sort of three drainage areas, and then it would flow right into what we're, the really great example of the pollinator garden over at the library. Really continue that the planting is not just one set aside pollinator garden, especially in this example, we really said, okay, let's pull that idea of a really full plant palette that includes both, large shade trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and perennials and grasses and things that all support our pollinators and are native, but let's incorporate it throughout the park. In this example, this is the one where I put the most of that character. And balance the lawn. I think this plaza would also probably have small little seat retaining walls just to deal with the grade and to enclose the space. And we can come back to all of these. This one, the sidewalk. In the earlier plans, the sidewalk was only running along the side with the parking lot. I think it makes a lot of sense, and you have room to run the sidewalk also along the outside of the park. So those who want to walk around the park or connect to the sports field can do so and have lots of connectivity there. And we've kept the crosswalk location in this example up where it was before, that would lead up to a connection that right now, unfortunately, is stopped at the church property. But again, we talked about, is there a way to make that connection all the way through? So again, and these are some images we can zoom in and look at them bigger later, but the idea is that this plaza here could accommodate some furniture. This is, different examples. There's more, there you have a shade sail with traditional sort of tables and chairs. These are units that have solar panels that power up people so they can actually use Wi-Fi and power right at these stations, a little more contemporary. So the idea is that kind of amenity is down here. We even talked about, I don't have every example in the world here, but things like game tables or other items could be placed in this plaza. So again, and here's concept plan 2. So there may be ideas from one of these, you want to move to another one, and I in doing these, 3 concepts, I did notice on your priority list the idea of an amphitheater, and it wasn't, I have to admit, it wasn't one of your top priorities in the end in the voting. I did think, not a highly structured amphitheater, but because the site really lends itself, it slopes up in this direction, having something as a soft grass amphitheater, doesn't even have to have the walls, would be worth just considering as another option. It allows you to have a winding path. So it's an amphitheater, but also incorporating the idea of a winding pathway. And on this is the idea the memorial is really something you walk through on these walls. So yes, it could function as an outdoor classroom or just a place to relax, but really the experience of the memorial is something that you walk through as you go up the hill, and that it can be engraved on the walls. The other option for this, and I know it was marked in one of your earlier sketches, and also we looked at those existing boulders, is if we wanted to make this even less formal, I feel like this scheme could still work very well if this was a more natural grass slope with a pathway, and use some of your existing boulders and engrave them as part of the memorial. So there's another option here that's a little less formalized. In this option, a major difference is, instead of the crosswalk being up here at the top corner, we're saying, okay, what about if we made the crosswalk down here at the parking lot? So if people, besides parking the parking lot and maybe walking across the grass to a sports event at St. Mark's, at other times, if they were to use the parking, not when the games are going on, when there's availability, it might be more direct to, and maybe make the connection into the parking lot to cross lower down here to enter the park instead of walking around. So it's just another option of adding connectivity in a different spot, and then really just having this edge, knowing that we're not really going to go much further because we get squeezed against the historic cemetery, letting this be just a grass edge along the street. In this plan, the landmark trees, instead of being in a grove, we've spaced them along the edge in a more traditional sort of trees along the road thing. So I'm looking at the bottom here, and just for scale, these are the trees across the street. These canopies are more like 50 or 60 feet. So this is, 100 years down the line, but they will, this kind of spacing would be sort of growing together like the ones you see right across the street, which are really, really beautiful landmark trees. This one just is a different option. We're saying, the rain gardens and the pollinator gardens are great. What we showed in option 1 was actually quite a bit of garden to maintain. So this one says, okay, there's, we could scale that back and really have less garden space if that's sort of the proportion was right, and still have a very lush sort of dynamic park. We've added, again, the flowering trees, which are a lower maintenance item. And sort of the difference of this one is it pulls this plaza. It's a little bigger plaza, and it pulls it closer to the inside of the park. Maybe it's a little quieter than our one down here. It also makes a really much more direct connection to the library. So it's a little closer, snugged up to the library and visual things. So and it's a little larger as well as the other one. So it's a larger paved area. So that's something proportional again to consider. Again, because it's this amphitheater idea, you could have a small performance there, but again, on a day-to-day basis, people could take a book or read up on these walls. And then again, this is flexible outdoor workspace or game space. And then finally, concept 3, just trying to think of a million ways to do this, is this again, the outdoor plaza space is now even more towards the library. And really we sort of said, okay, let's show a sidewalk coming in here. So you could come in and really access this edge of the parking lot. We talked about if there was an event, I think you said that the book sale or something uses the parking lot, but it could easily be designed so you had, truck access here. So something could be set up on the plaza. So it's really connected to that. It makes the access really easy. The idea on the memorial for this one is to really integrate it with sort of a grand trail that goes through. The top right is a little bit of the idea that you could have a story, a bunch of quotes, or something that you read as you walk through this part of the park. So this pathway becomes the memorial. Also on this plan, there's a couple stopping places with individual quiet benches and a little entrance plaza up here. This one has a crosswalk back at the top. One less tree in here, but again, the landmark trees are more scattered as sort of park trees, not as formal as the circle in option 1. We have some more flowering trees at the edge. So something you see along the outside creates a little buffer for this trail in here. And then this one actually also has extensive areas for pollinator and rain gardens, if that's your wish to have that many of them. So those are the 3 options. Other items on here, I really, the idea on this one is having the memorial along here, but I really did like this example, Andrew, that you sent, that had the engraved boulder. I can zoom in on these. Maybe I should, so I can do that. So again, this idea of, quotes and poetry in stone, I think is really appropriate. But again, we can take a step back from that. I think, especially this group with your expertise with history and the library really could probably do some good research and find some really good things to be engraved. But I did like this example, so that's another direction. Couple other things on here is, I think the memorial can speak for itself, but there may be a place, depending on how abstract the memorial is, to have a more traditional interpretive sign, like this. This one is the design of these. National Park Service and a lot of places use these. The reason they're set at these angles is they're accessible. You can roll up to them if you're in a chair and read the material and get next to it. So this is very much a standard of how you do these interpretive signs now, where you're sharing text and information. And again, as you develop the park design, there may be a real place for something like this, which really explains what's going on, why the memorial's here, the history of the site, and certainly things have found. One thought that ran across my head as I was laying these out, and what these things could be in the here's a piece I showed you at the last meeting. I showed the group the Salem Witch Trial Memorial, and this is a little piece of here where there are quotes from the trial transcripts. And this memorial also has a wall with names of people who are accused of witchcraft, who were executed and set in the wall. So there's all kinds of pieces to that memorial. One thing I thought, especially with your work with the archaeologist and what you find, is, part of this, and maybe it's on a sign here. I don't know if the group is familiar or have been to a college ceremony recently, but the idea of a land acknowledgement, be something you could even express in the park. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's something that will happen in a ceremony. Very colleges and other institutions use it, where before a ceremony they'll acknowledge that this was tribal land and the tribes who lived there, and their view of the land. I think that's an important thing to acknowledge, especially with your direction you gave. I don't say you have to have it, but it's just sort of a thought, and really, getting away from, the idea. Somebody brought up a very good point, is, you didn't want the memorial to look actually like a burial, like a headstone. And I think it's a really good point, especially when you think about honoring, non-Europeans. The idea is, in a lot of those cultures and philosophies, is it's not they're separate from the land. There's a real strong tradition of, that they're part of this, if they're here, they're part of this site. So I think, having a memorial that sort of integrates with the landscape is really powerful. The only other thing I'll say before I really want to get some feedback is another inspiration. And I was looking at this one with this grove here. I have a friend who's he's actually the first selectman in Salisbury, Connecticut, but he's also a forester. And there's some really old white oaks actually in Lakeville, Connecticut, what they call the town grove. And he had a friend of his who's a Yale School of Forestry person who does micro core sampling of trees to try to date them, see how old they were. They're actually planted in a regular pattern, and they were shocked because they found out that they were predated European settlement, which is very unusual, to actually have things planted regularly. The theory, I mean, this is still research, is that this was land that was used for agriculture, in a fashion, and that on the way out, they would typically sometimes burn the sites that were used for sort of integrated agriculture, and then they would plant, trees, white oaks, from acorns or saplings for the next generation. They'd never see them grow, of course, but that was the theory of why they were regularly spaced. It's not like they came and transplanted them like we would, but that it's an unusual thing to find, but that it probably was some conscious planting for a future generation, which I thought was really relevant to what you guys talked about. last meeting. So there we are. Love to hear what people think.
Uh, Thank you. I'm overwhelmed with the beauty of every single one of them. I think they're fantastic. What I would like to do is to ask the working group members one at a time to give their thoughts and their questions. And maybe we could just start with Andrew. How about that?
Sure. Marguerite, I agree. I think they're all very inspiring designs, and they all would look very attractive. And I think you did really well, listening to what the working group said and having each design, it kind of reflects all the things that we talked about. So, I mean, some detailed questions I had, and I know that some other people may have these questions also, but like in the plaza area where you have those kind of star looking things.
Yes.
I don't know what are those? And then also, of the three designs, do you think that there's a lot of similarity between them, but what do you think there's differences in terms of like cost, durability? So for example, like in the winding amphitheater, I thought that they looked like a zigzag. I thought that looked really interesting. But I could see, if it's stone, where it looks perfect the first couple years, and then snow, ice, maintenance, and start,
Mhm.
And also shade, because you got some of them have very different placement of the trees, and how does that affect shade? So I think my questions were, what are those? Are they like umbrellas or tables? And then yeah, just the differences from the three, you think, in terms of
Yeah.
cost or durability, long-term maintenance issues. I mean, are
Yeah.
these paths, do you see them as like crushed stone or paved or blocks?
Yeah. So to answer your first question, these are tables in plan, if you will. So the center is a table and the things coming off of them are chairs. So it's just to give some scale, saying, this is a little cafe table here. These are probably, Adirondack chairs. So it doesn't have to be, there's a little diagram, like a representative of the scale more than exactly what furniture we'd put in there. I don't think we're there yet. It's more like, here's a space and you can see that, it could fit a small gathering. You'd have 20 people occupying it comfortably in this one. So it's just to give an idea of scale, really. But those are tables. Your other question, as far as cost, durability, I think they're kind of similar, and they all have similar elements, certain amount of walls, certain amount of pathway. One thing I did point out before is, the proportion of pollinator and rain gardens versus lawn. Lawn you have to mow, and it's got its place, but it's not as great for the environment as all these great gardens. But this actually takes a lot of work. So if there's not the resources to maintain this, you might end up with more lawn just because, if they're not going to be taken care of, it's just a little much. I'd say, proportionally, they're all about the same. I mean, I say this option 3 to really do this engraved wide walkway, a series of walls, benches, and this plaza. Maybe there's a little more work in here, a little more stonework and things to really pull it off. Whereas option 1, because there's just sort of lawn and oval, I mean, you could pare this one down further, but I'm not saying if we love this pathway, then maybe we simplify it and just make it simple. Maybe we don't have the little alcoves. So you really could scale some of these down. They're all very similar in that respect. I mean, I sometimes will do ones that are like, this is basic, but I feel like all of these you could, I mean, this is sort of the ultimate vision. They don't have things like lighting on them. You could add lighting, but I feel like you could strip, not in a bad way, but you could simplify some of these, have less garden, have less benches, have a more simple path, have a smaller plaza. You could probably get away with removing some of these walls. Not that I'd want you to, but for just, budgets and other things, I feel like all of these, there is a version that's a value version if that's what you had to get to. These walls here, again, I talked about that they could be some beautiful cut granite stonework with engraving, not inexpensive, but definitely durable to your sort of maintenance thing. It'd be more durable than anything else. But you also could say, let's sort of keep the winding path, do like earth mounds, and then use the existing boulders, place them along the edge and engrave them instead. And I think that would be an appropriate simplified version of this, versus the cost of fabricating these granite walls. So this one could be a very simple project. Again, you could reduce the amount of pavement and have less pavement, but I do think, in the pavement itself, this could be the pathways you asked about. They could be stabilized. Stone dust is an option. I think you were looking for something permeable at some point. And with that becomes some maintenance, but there is a product that you can use on crushed stone dust. Stone dust can come in different colors. It can look lighter, not just gray. And there's a natural resin stabilizer product that gets mixed in. So when they put it down, it actually binds it together. They use it on the Minuteman. There's one picture that was sent to the Minuteman National Park in Lexington. The pathways on that park use the same method. It is considered permeable. It's not as permeable as, you can have permeable pavers. There's lots of things you could do, but it is considered permeable. So there are options. Again, as you look at these plaza spaces, that also could be much more simple, that stone dust surface with maybe a little edging. Again, if you were not looking to do the expensive, this could be cut stone pavers or brick or all kinds of things that would be more costly, but create a more smooth surface.
So what
Yeah.
I'm hearing is that the design is one thing, but the materials, you have some flexibility on what you're using and what the cost would be.
Yeah,
And maybe-
absolutely. You
All
could,
right. Okay.
there's, scale up any one, or scale down
All right.
any one of these. Yes.
Great. Andrew, do you have any other questions?
No, because I want to leave also time for other people to talk as well.
Okay, I just wanted to say that one of the people who's watching has their hand up, and we are going to hear from everyone in the working group, and then we will throw it open to questions from people who are watching. So don't be impatient with us, but I would really like to get the opinions of the working group before we open it up. Grant, could you please tell me your, or us, your questions and your thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Michael, for sending these along earlier today, and also for your presentation. Yeah, I agree. I think there's some really great ideas here, and it's nice to be able to kind of see what they might look like in proper plans, rather than just throwing around ideas, which is what we had been doing for a couple months there. So I did have a question on the second plan with the amphitheater-like winding path. Just looking at it from above here, it looks kind of like a severe, winding, not really like a gentle curving path to me. So I'm not sure of the grade there, but would that be like formal steps in between going up from one wall to another, or would it be all on a grade, or just couldn't really picture what
Yeah.
it looks like.
Yeah, no, and because it's so long, actually, it would be a one sort of gentle slope, if you will. Like if you spread this out, it'd all be one pitch going up as you go. So there'd be no steps. And actually, because you've got all this distance to make up this grade, the sloping would happen in between on the grass areas. So it does wind on purpose. I mean, this is this labyrinth picture here, but I thought it was like really relevant that sort of you just, when you walk on this, you're taking the extra time. And if you're a kid, you're just going to hop over here and run up this and that, and that's fine. But if you want to sort of take your time and read this thing as you go and sort of take a meditative walk, it's there for you, or you can sit on the way, and that's enough for you to sit and sort of say, okay, I'm going to hang out on this step here, or, you're going to have, maybe run an outdoor class or something, and people can line up on there, and you could, sit down here. So this is fairly gentle overall, but it does purposely sort of take you on a little twisty turn there.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, in terms of my thoughts, I think as I said, I appreciate all three designs. I think I quite like the third design, just personally. I thought that for whatever reason that one struck me. I guess for the plaza area, would it be possible? I mean, obviously everything's flexible and this isn't set in stone, but to reduce the area or alter that if we decide to go with a smaller seating area or something like that. I kind of like the alcoves interspersed along the path. I like that idea.
Yeah, no, that's sure. Even the shape, whatever. I mean, I'm going with this more natural, these oval shapes. I feel like they're nice compact shape, but this is connected enough to the library. If we wanted to make this a simple rectangle, I did sort of play with that. I think that would be fine too. So there's options here, but you could bring it in, like, as you said, you can decide you don't really need this little spur path. You can make this smaller and just have the flexible lawn be bigger, because this again will be a lawn that slopes up to this point no matter, or the ground will slope up here along the path. And maybe you'd want this more open. We could move the trees to the outside and have more of that open lawn space in this one as well. But yeah, so it's all possible at this point. That's what's fun about this stage, is or difficult too, because there's so many ways to do it. But yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing what the public has to say.
Okay, Freddie, could you share your questions and thoughts, please?
Hi, this is Freddie Gillespie. I'm not sure if people can see me. I was told you can't because I don't have my video on, so apology for that. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you. I think you've incorporated a lot of the ideas of the working group, and there are attributes in each of the plans I like. I would like to make a couple of comments that, for the most part, native plant gardens are not the same amount of work as other gardening. It's one of the beauties of them. We have ones that are thriving that have not been watered once this summer. So heading into droughts, that's another consideration. I would say the rain gardens are to perform a purpose of infiltrating and absorbing the excessive wetness in this area with a high water table. So that's one aspect. Having said that, I don't necessarily think, I believe that the concept plan 1, if you can go to that, was my favorite. I'm not sure exactly why. I like the trees being within the area, so they provide shade, the heritage trees providing shade. I appreciate that you brought in the smaller trees, I'm assuming, thinking of redbud is one of the ones we've mentioned, which is a lovely tree for parks.
Mhm.
Additionally, you have the rain gardens, but gardens don't, for the pollinator, the native plantings don't have to be just a garden that requires a lot of, or what people presume is a lot more work. There's a lot of shrubs that could be used that would fulfill some of these needs. But I also think if you scroll down a bit to, I don't know, was it, I think it was 3. Well, yeah, the plaza there is a lot of hardscaping in the middle, I believe, or even if it's stone dust. So I did like the more grass lawn in number 1 was one of the reasons I liked it a lot. We didn't bring it up, I don't think, at the last meeting, but someone suggested to me it might be nice to have some shrub delineation at the end of the parking lot. So you don't just go from pavement to the park. That was one aspect. I also know walking up 85, where people coming from downtown, which was one of the goals, people are more likely wanting to get into the park sooner rather than walking all the way around to find an entranceway. So closer to the driveway to the library would be one of my thoughts if you're thinking about people walking from downtown to get in away from the street traffic. But having said all that, I mean, I can't say there's so many wonderful ideas here, but I do know my recommendation for the committee is that we really need to wait to know, to discuss more details or firmer planning, what happens with this dig. And I also think, you know, we've done an amazing amount of work, have some great ideas to showcase, but to get to the, oh, let's do this, not that. Well, we don't know if some of this area is going to need to be something else because they do find burial ground. We don't know that. And, you know, I think I would prefer that we wait till we get that to move forward with any more plans. We also want to have a public forum, which requires the committee to plan for a public forum, which is advertise and send out emails and put it in notices and Twitter and everything else to get as broad a representation across town to get other people's ideas. And also when I heard our charge, I think we were supposed to report back to the selectmen by the 30th of September, but there was a little leeway there. I'd like to recommend that we ask them to give a report later, mid-October to the end of October, because I don't see how we can have a public input, public forum until we have the information from the dig. And I don't
Okay,
see how.
Freddie, I'm gonna jump here and I'm gonna say, I guarantee you all those things are gonna happen. We will probably not be meeting again until we have the information on the dig. We are going to ask the board of select boards, excuse me.
Excuse me.
The
That's a decision for the committee, and I'm
Yeah,
asking
yeah,
the
yeah, but
committee
I
to
am
make a
gonna,
recommendation.
yeah, understood, but what I wanna do is, what I wanna have us discuss and hopefully do is all of the things that you've said. We're going to have the forums, we're waiting for the dig, and we're going back to the selectmen with either a
We haven't
report.
discussed that yet. That was my point.
Yes, okay,
We
but we're
haven't, as a
right now
committee,
we're on the
discussed that.
design. Freddie, right now we're on the design.
Okay,
So
so
we're
my
just gonna
my
talk about
comment, and
design
I'll stop after this. My comment is we
procedural.
can't discuss the design till we have more information, and we have public information is what we should be doing.
Yes, understood, but right now we're talking about your particular response to this design and questions that you have for Michael.
A particular comment is that it's premature to do this portion of the discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't want to get in the middle of anything here, but I do appreciate, Freddie, your comments you made about the native gardens. I'm all for it. I just want to make people aware that, you know, that there's more of them. And I do also agree with some of the coming in the corner there and having some buffer from the parking lot. I think, you know, I'm seeing right now an opportunity for another pathway. And yeah, no, I do. I'm not going to say which ones I like. So, but I do appreciate your comments.
Good. Okay, Freddie, anything else? I guess that's a no. Okay, Kevin, your questions.
Marguerite, is it okay if I defer my turn?
Yes, would you like to go last?
Yes,
All
thank you.
right. Then Bill, how about you?
Thank you. Interesting designs. Quick question. I have actually two questions which may form a predicate for my preferences here. And one is, what did you think of the noise issue associated with 85? Was that an issue when you were down there doing the site examination?
Yeah, I mean, it's when a truck rolls by, you know, it's not a constant thing, but it is definitely disturbing when a truck goes by. I didn't, you know, at that time of day there wasn't a lot of traffic, but I did, you know, I did experience at least one truck rumbling by. You know, and that's sort of, you accept or not, like even in, you know, this option here, you accept that you're on the corner here in the plaza on option one. There's sort of quieter spaces up top. I did think about it a little bit on this amphitheater by trying to pull it away from 85 a little. You know, there's and I know Bill, you had your sketch there, and you had the idea of having a structure in here that could help some, but I just you know, it would take some study. I mean, if that's the noise becomes, you know, once we sort of get on site and examine this, I'm not sure there's a lot to be done, you know, because you don't want to, like, you know, probably not want to one of those sound fences, which are not that effective anyway, but you know, it is, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe when they repave 85 will be a little smoother, but I'm not sure there's a lot to be done, honestly, about the noise.
And I tend to concur. And Marguerite, I have a question for you.
All right.
You at one time, early in our discussions, suggested that the library would like to use this park potentially for story hours and other things, programs of varying kinds. Is that still true? And based on that, which preference do you see with respect to that, your response?
Thank you for that. Yes, Kim Ivers, the children's librarian, would still like to use that space if possible. And where she saw the story hours mostly happening were, if you look at Concept Plan 1 and you go to 12 o'clock noon on the park, right where 11 o'clock would be, that piece of lawn has a good slant. It has the shading from the trees that are already there, and she said that she thought it was the quietest spot in the park. So she was thinking somewhere around there would be good for story hours because the kids get hot. And sometimes where she's reading now, near the library, when the trucks go by, she has to stop reading until the truck's gone by. So thank you for asking that question. I can see it working out exactly with just about any one of those designs, but particularly this one.
Okay. All right, excellent. Well then, here's my observation, that plan number 1 does put a quiet seating area very near 85. And I think in general, while there's probably not something that can be done with a lot of that traffic noise, we're asking for more and more disturbance on plan number 1. If in fact people want to sit there, converse, enjoy, have some sort of story discussions, whatever that turns out to be. On plan number 3, it does also push that plaza area very near the parking lot. Now, there are some advantages to that, but there are obviously some disadvantages also. It also then presents you with, rather than having an area where one could potentially have either story hours or other types of program discussions, presentations, etc., it doesn't give you that opportunity as much it does give you a serpentine walkway that runs through there and the ability to kind of veer off and set in various, I suppose those are benches and other areas in those alcoves. But it doesn't give you the ability to do a larger presentation. And therefore, my observation tends to be that number two, even though there are some disadvantages with that, gives us the best of all of my concerns. It moves that plaza as far as it can be away from sound areas, number one. And number two, it gives you seating areas that potentially are up in or towards that quiet area of the park where, in fact, story hour and other types of things would occur. Number three, it gives us a general ability to have larger presentations, programs, whatever that might be, using the plaza as the kind of stage or presentation area. It also allows us to, if necessary, down on the lower 7 o'clock area of that particular photo, it allows us to put additional signage, historical information, et cetera, in that largely open area down there, where in fact noise and sun and other issues may not be nearly as much of a concern as it would be for other types of things. So I guess for those reasons, I kind of like design number two, to be very honest. Done.
Thank you. Thank you for all of those observations. Can I ask James for your thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Marguerite, and thank you very much, Michael. These designs are a good reminder on why we need actual expertise on this issue, because these are far above anything I could create. I just want to point out something I liked about concept 3, and that is one, at the library parking lot, that sidewalk. I suppose it could easily fit into any of the other designs, but personally, from the time I've walked there, that sidewalk is, or that parking lot rather, is not the friendliest area in town. I think a sidewalk there would be very beneficial. And just generally, this third concept design, I think the layout of the paths is very attractive for a potential park, and any small things I could say, I think we could further work out. Like, for example, that plaza, I would imagine it could go further towards the center of the park and away from the parking lot.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, you know, any minor thing I could say is probably not important enough. I think it's important to remember that right now, what we're looking at is not a park and is in fact an empty dirt lot next to 2 parking lots. So I'm very grateful for these designs, and I hope we can see something as livable and meant for humans as these. So thank you, Michael.
And thank you, James. That's well said, as ever. Kevin, do you want to give us your input now?
Sure, Marguerite, thank you. I can, although I think I'm not sure what value my views would have at this point, because of, you know, the fact that the dig is going to happen in a week, and that's going to give us a lot of clarity. I do want to thank Michael for the plans, the ideas. They're lovely, you know. Landscape and architectural renderings are always pretty to look at, and idea boards are very much appreciated. And there's things that I like here. Just for the record, I'll say them quickly. I like the landmark trees. I like the ADA accessibility. I like the sidewalk connection idea all the way to Common Street. I like the quiet benches in number 3. What I don't like are large plazas. I don't think, again, depending on the results of the dig, I'm not sure picnicking is appropriate in this area, or game tables or solar panels. I'm in general opposed to, we haven't heard from the public, so we don't know what they want yet. I am opposed to providing, this is adjacent to St. Mark's sports field, and with all respect to my wonderful friends at St. Mark's, they've got lots of amenities already, and I don't want us to be in the business of providing them for parents and folks that attend events at the adjacent sports fields. This may be sacred ground, and until we find out whether it is or not, it's very hard for me to opine. I am like, but I'm again, I love the idea of the landmark trees and all that other stuff. I'm opposed to the hardscape and the plaza stuff. I will say that, like Andrew, I'm concerned about cost and maintenance for obvious reasons, but I would point to, I would love anybody who cared to, I would love to take a walk with you sometime around the town green and around the perimeter of the old burial ground, and between the pollinator gardens behind the library and the stone wall of the old burial ground. And there, because it's so many maintenance issues that we have, that makes me quite concerned about adding to the list of things to be mowed and trimmed and cared for. In the case of the town green, you've got a granite and iron pole fence that's in appalling condition and falling down. This is almost 3 years after the conclusion of the sidewalk project in the center of town. So I have grave concerns for whatever the reason, and that's not, I raised the issue not to sound cranky, but just in a very practical way. I have very grave concerns about our ability to add. Of course, what was there before all this began was a stand of trees that required no maintenance. So I think that has to be a concern, both from an initial cost standpoint and how it's going to be kept very beautiful. And I appreciate Freddie's comment, for instance, that the pollinator gardens are very attractive because they're more low maintenance. I was also thinking about the sort of phenomenon of crevice gardening, which has become a thing where there's a lot of rock elements. And again, it becomes a sort of low water, low maintenance thing once established, but it's expensive to put in. So I have thoughts, and I hope we can work them out, but it's my apologies, Marguerite and the rest of the working group. I have a hard time at saying anything definitively, because in another week from now, the field may be cleared for whatever the town wants and whatever kind of amenity the town might want and that we might agree on. But in another week from now, we may find out that this is sacred ground. And so there I'll stop. And thank you so much. And Michael, I really do appreciate the work and your flexibility and your good nature in taking feedback.
Great, no, thank you.
And thank you, Kevin, because please don't ever apologize for anything you're saying. It's all good to hear, because we're not simply saying yes, yes, yes. I am very heartened because we have visualizations of a number of good possibilities here. I am also very much aware that we don't know what the dig is going to give, and then when we do, it's going to change the ballgame one way or the other. There will still need to be something on that piece of land. So I think these are moving us toward being able to visualize something besides the current appearance of it. And what I would like to do now is I would like to open this up to the participants who have been watching, who are residents. And I think, Andrew, if you could bring over, I think Joanne Pearson had her hand up for a while and then put it down. And then Patricia Burns-Fiore after that has her hand
Okay,
up.
so I know, okay. Well, I do not see Miss Pearson's hand up right now, but if she still
Okay,
wants to talk, feel free to raise your hand, but
all
You just
right,
raised it and put it
I will
down.
allow Patty to talk.
all right.
Good evening. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
Okay. I'm out in Western New York, so it's a long distance. First, I can appreciate the time and thought you have all put into your research and the many meetings that you've had, and I do thank you for your time. But I'm pretty sure there was a clear message from town meeting voters. Mr. Dunnington, I understand there's a license agreement, which may or may not be legal, but what it does not mean is that the town owns this land. The town meeting vote on easements to proceed with this park was a resounding no confidence vote. And I don't understand why we continue to spend time and taxpayer dollars to proceed. And if someone could please explain to me in realistic, basic terms why this project is proceeding, I'd appreciate it. Why are we spending taxpayer dollars to build a park, which the town will also pay to maintain in perpetuity on private property? We do not own this land. We should not be spending 1 cent of taxpayer dollars on private property.
Okay, Patricia, I'm going to ask everyone who speaks to just take 3 minutes. So you're about 45 seconds in. So if you want to do that for the 3 minutes, that's fine. Or you could move on to some other points.
I have no concept, or I have no input on the design of this park because I do not think we should be spending money to design a park. You are spending my taxpayer dollars for VHB to design a park on private property. I object to that. I object. I have asked the select board, I have asked your working group. I have said many times in public and in private forums that this should not proceed because we do not own this property. I'm not sure why it is all falling on deaf ears. So if someone could please explain to me how this is right and proper that we are spending taxpayer dollars on this private property, I would really, really love to hear it. I hope that was understood.
Any other comments?
I'd like an answer.
Our charge is to come up with a design and themes, and that is what you've just asked is way above my pay grade.
Well, actually, your charge, I believe, is to go back to the select board with suggestions. I don't believe your charge was actually to come up with a design, which you and the select board have now agreed to pay taxpayer dollars to have funded. I apologize. I'm a little cranky. I drove 400 miles today. But I don't understand why we are proceeding with this when it is on private property.
You know what I would suggest? We are going to have 3 meetings with the public. I hate to call Southborough residents the public, but with people who are not in the working group, we're going to have 3 meetings. And I suggest that all of the points that you've just made, you bring up there.
This is a public
I brought
forum.
these same points up before town meeting, during town meeting, after town meeting. I have never got a substantial answer on why we're spending taxpayer money on private property. And I thought this tonight was supposed to be a public forum.
There's public comment. The forum, apparently, from what Freddie tells me, is a different format.
There was a public forum posted for tonight.
There was a public forum posted for tonight.
That was coming out of the townhouse. All right. Well, I wish I could be more specific about what is going on with the financial part of it, but I don't have any idea. I'm not on the Board of Selectmen, and I haven't been privy to the conversations with St. Mark, so I don't know.
But you've chosen to recommend town money, taxpayer money, be spent for the design of this.
That's engineering money, and I'm not sure it comes from the town or the state.
I'm sorry, DPW budget and engineering budget, everything is, there is supplemental money that comes from the state, but the budget is based on taxpayer funded dollars.
All right.
It's so frustrating not to ever get an answer on this. It is.
No, I hear your frustration, but I personally have no ability to answer your question.
Patty, thanks for coming in and commenting tonight. the way that I've been approaching this, and I agree that there are outstanding issues here that still have not been addressed, and I have shared those concerns in our meetings here, in our meetings dating back to, I believe we started in February through to the present. You know, it's been an interesting process in which we've essentially been moving along a two-track system in which we are trying to come up with a design while also holding in our heads that it might never happen.
But you spend money. You spent money.
I did not spend any money.
Well, the taxpayers have spent money
Well, the
to
taxpayer
design this.
The original, my understanding is that the original plans cost $150,000 or something like that, 115. And you know, obviously there was work done, and I'm not sure how much, and I don't know if anyone knows really how much that costs. So yes, there are problems. So in my mind, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but the outstanding issues that would prevent me from, you know, recommending one of these plans or an alteration of the plan forward, just as in my personal opinion, would be the result of the archaeological dig and whether or not the town owns the land. My understanding is that currently select board members or member, I'm not sure, are potentially working with St. Mark's to come up with a potential solution to that problem. But right now, we don't have answers on either of those.
Can I make one more comment, please?
Sure, absolutely.
Grant, I appreciate that. And I appreciate your consciousness that y'all are putting the cart before the horse. Because there is not a decision on whether this is a burial ground. There is not a decision on who, you know, well, we know who owns the property. I have also heard that there is hope that St. Mark's would agree to a land swap. But what is the possible incentive for St. Mark's to agree to a land swap? They're now spending $20,000 plus on an architectural survey. Plus, they get a park on their property they don't have to pay for, design, build, or maintain. Plus a parking lot that's made for that.
Patty, I feel your frustration. What can we tell you here tonight? We are waiting for the archaeological dig. We're waiting for the Board of Selectmen to report back to the community what is the legal status. I mean, everyone knows that there was great unhappiness with the legal status of that piece of land. And I think that your unhappiness with the whole situation is registered, but what can we help you with right now?
You can stop spending taxpayer dollars. There is no justification to spend money to design a park that should not be happening and may not be happening. How will you justify having spent that money if this just all goes up in flames, as it should?
If I can just chime in, I don't think that we can justify a potential scenario in the future. I have the sense of the
not in the
working group.
future. We don't own
It
the
is
property.
in the future. It is complete speculation that, you know, there won't be a park. The sense I get from the working group is that there is hope that there will be a park, that it will be legally under some legal scheme owned and maintained by the town of Southborough.
You know what?
And there will be a park and not a dirt pit.
If we own the property,
I've got somebody else with a hand up. Miroslav Dluy wants to talk.
If we own the property, let's have that conversation then. Let's not put the cart before the horse.
Okay, thank you for your input, and I'd like to hear from another resident. Maybe, Andrew, you could put Mr. Dluy over.
Sure. I do that. Just 1 second. I'll figure it out. All right, hold on. Allowed to talk.
Oh, this is Miroslav Lohi, 10 Smith Lane. My comments would second the previous Pet's comments. I do not understand how this park came to be as an idea. This park didn't start as an idea of a park. This park started as an idea to change the intersection for St. Mark's. So the design seems to me it's everything the other way around. Yeah? Instead of the residents being interested to have a park, we are trying to figure out how to put a park where the roads are being changed. So for me, the discussion of the design is an afterthought, and I find it the same way as Pat, that it doesn't make any sense. We are designing something what nobody requested.
Anybody care to speak to that?
I don't know if I'm just going to be the one responding to people today.
Go for it, Grant.
But my understanding of the concept, the original, idea for this park is in line with what you said, that the DPW superintendent and perhaps someone on the select board, I'm not sure exactly, came up with the idea for changing the intersection, and that resulted in the general idea of a parking lot on one side and the potential park on the other. I do think that is accurate, and that is kind of the framework that we've been working within, especially given the work that was already done on the site, which predated the origins of this group.
I'd like to chime in, if I may be allowed to speak.
Yes, Freddie, please.
So I'd like to share my perspective of why I'm sitting on this working group. It became apparent after town meeting, there was a lot of dissatisfaction with how this came about. But then it also became evident that there was going to be planning for the park that could eventually be installed there. And I agreed to sit on the committee. I actually wanted to be on the committee or the working group because I felt my over 20 years experience working in the town for the Open Space Preservation Commission, working on helping to design, create, and manage public spaces would have value to add to the discussion, and so that whatever came out of this, if it did come out of this, would to make it be the best it could be with my input, which I felt I had value and experience. Having said that, I agree with some of what the commenters have said, and I would say that I've been advocating that we slow down a bit, especially until the dig happens. We know a little bit more about the disposition of the land is another issue. And I want to go on record because I think it's important that I never participated in any discussion or knew of any discussion since I've been on the committee that we voted and asked to spend money on this. There was some, maybe I was naive. It seemed to be that I kept getting this response that we discussed all this before you were on the committee or the working group. And I heard that over and over again. So I just assumed this was another one and that there was some pot of money from the prior planning before I was on the committee or left over to have a VHB come in. So on that level, I would say, I personally agree with some of the comments about spending taxpayer money before we have more information. I wouldn't have voted to do so, but I wasn't part of that conversation. And the committee.
No, it was the board of selectmen who voted to do that.
After we had already engaged and spent money. So I'm not going to have that battle here. I just That's why I thought we should slow down and then find out from the dig and plan a public forum, because even though we all bring wonderful, wonderful knowledge to this working group, we're not the townspeople that a public forum would have given us
So
insight.
I understand what you're saying, and I would just like to say that this piece of land is a flashpoint with the enormous amount of dissatisfaction that various people in this town are feeling with other people, boards, and committees in this town. It is politically very sensitive. And to me, the issue is, are we going to work towards something there, or are we going to fault find until nothing happens?
And I'm going to say one final thing, because I keep getting interrupted and other people don't when they make long comments. I'm going to say, I agree with you. I'm not fault finding. I think this committee needs to work in a way that's acceptable to the town. And that before we spend any more money, that we make sure we discuss it and we vote it.
Can I say something
Went to the
here?
selectmen, this
Yes,
committee
Andrew,
never
hop
asked.
in, you're the selectman.
Can I
for
say
it.
something here, Marguerite, quickly, if
Yes,
that's okay?
please.
One, Michael, you've been very patient, and you're on the, what do you call it? Brady Bunch squares here. Would you like to be sent back into the audience? So that we elevated you for the your presentation, but
Or do you even want to listen to
yeah,
this?
because these are all questions that are really.
We're into the metaphysics
I'm
of the
gonna-
space.
No,
now.
it's actually pretty fascinating, but
Okay.
I'm happy, if you really, if there can be more questions about what we talked about,
Okay.
I'm happy to hang on. If you think you're beyond sort of talking about the design, I'm happy to sign off. So just,
Okay. So if there are questions about the design,
yeah, so if people have, I don't know, if anybody has a question about the design or, wants to talk about it,
I think I can.
I'm happy to hang on
Okay.
for those. But
I
if,
could.
yeah,
What I can do is I can just remove you as a panelist, and then if I think that means you'll just go back to being an attendee.
that is fine.
Okay. Let's see if this works.
Thanks, Michael.
I just want to be respectful of his time, but I think that there is the next select board meeting is on Wednesday, September 7th. And we usually have been meeting every other week. So we wouldn't usually be meeting on Thursday, the 1st. And the information about the dig is going to happen in the 1st or 2nd week in September. So what I plan to do is for the Wednesday, September 7th, regular select board meeting to just have this as a members report and report on this meeting. And then, just kind of await further instructions. And a lot of the concerns that people have expressed here are really things about money, etc., which really this working group has no authority over. So I encourage people to feel free to come to the select board meeting on the 7th. I can't guarantee that it'll be on the agenda, but I can at least as a members report, report back on the status of this working group. And then, I think that, the charge of the working group was to put together a recommendation about design for a park, the proposed park, by September 30th. And I think this, the process we had was critical to getting that. And then the rest of all the questions being raised are really not really questions for.
Can I
for
also
this
point something else out here? The working group originally began with a lot of questions about whether or not there were remains. And the fact of an archaeological dig was never on the radar except for members of the working group saying, we really should look and see if there's anything under it. And I think as one result of the working group, when we were not following our mandate to come up with a memorial design, was that we ended up by hook or by crook with the archaeological dig being done, mostly, I would say, in response to questions that have been posed in the working group meetings. So I do not see that we are, what's the word I want, with one party or another here. My agenda in being part of this is to do the right thing by that piece of land, by the indigenous people, by the non-Indigenous people, by the slaves who were kept in Southborough, by the indentured servants, by the paupers. I want something here that says, we remember you. And we know 103 of your names, but we don't know the rest of your names. Sorry about that. That is my reason for doing this. And I know that there has been a lot of mistrust and a lot of polarization in the town. I cannot help that. I don't think anybody on the working group can help that. We are simply trying to get a memorial piece done here. And frankly, I don't care legally how it is held, as long as it is respectful and it is done as a place that people can go in Southborough and acknowledge who was here before us. That is my reason for being here, period, the end. All right.
So Miroslav Dlouhy, I think raised his hand again. And also there's someone.
Did Joanne Pearson ever get to talk?
Jim is promoted as a panelist. I don't know.
Jim Millett is a student at St. Mark's.
Okay. Does she want to speak? She's on a panelist right now.
Is Andrew doing the Zoom or are you doing it now?
I'm doing the Zoom. So
Okay. I don't think Jim Millett has her hand raised. I think she's on mute. Do we have any raised hands? Miroslav again. All right.
you want me to
Yeah, hi, Miroslav Dlouhy, 10 Smith Lane. First comment, I find it quite disrespectful if somebody believes that the citizens are making comments which have nothing to do with the design, while it is about the use of the place. Yeah, that's just a comment, general comment. The second one, which I appreciate the open trail and open space committee and all the things which they have done. My question related to that would be, what has been done to know how the space would be used, right? We heard the comments about the trucks on the Route 85 driving by. We heard the comments about that the park might be the most suitable for the visitors of the sports fields at the St. Mark's. I drive by that place very often. I haven't seen much residents of Southborough being ever anywhere around that space. Do we know that the space that's relevant to the design will be truly ever used by residents of Southborough?
I think if you are able to watch any of our 14 meetings that we've had to date, you will see that this was a constant concern over whether this area was a place that could be used by the people of Southborough.
And I will add is that the location of the space is right next to the town library. It is less than a 5-minute walk from town hall, from 2 of the main churches in town, and as additionally for coming up on almost a year now, it has been impossible to navigate. There have not been people there recently because it is currently a dirt lot.
I think the general consensus was that, and I think we talked about this with Mr. Kletchman in our previous meeting, that we just really don't know if anyone will use it. It's we can have all these uses that we would like them to be used for, but people might use them in different ways or not use it at all. So in some respect, we can try to design to, obviously have as many people use it as we can, but we can't, affect behavior to get people there. That's kind of, I think, a problem that we've been running into.
Miroslav, could I ask you a question?
They're not a participant anymore, but
Oh, gone? All right. Do we have any other raised hands? I see Marnie Houlihan is with us. I see someone named Outcast is with us. I see Sam Stivers is with us. Debbie is with us.
Oh, I'm seeing that Joanne Pearson would like to speak, if we can promote her.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Okay, I've had my hand up like I think the whole time. So I want to reiterate my feeling as I'm a taxpayer here for 26 years, that you certainly have put the cart before the horse. All these design discussions are ridiculous at this point. I also want to say I used to be a landscape architect in the state of Massachusetts. I practiced for 12 years. Michael is probably very familiar with the firm where I worked, Sasaki Associates. We should not be discussing design. And I do have comments about the design, but I'm going to reserve that to another time because I think that's getting way ahead of things here. I also want to, I believe I'm writing down who it was. I know Andrew made a comment about this. Well, Freddie and Kevin and Patty Fiore about the whole thing of doing this right now. But the idea of the cost of this project and looking at those cute little bubble diagrams, the cute little concept plans and the color, I used to do a lot of these things.
Can we not be sarcastic, please?
I'm sorry, it's hard for me not to be.
Just let's keep it civil, shall we?
They look very cute and they're very pretty. And I used to draw these things myself when I was a landscape architect. But the practicality of them, the cost of these designs, Michael never put any numbers to them. I think it was only like, well, this one might be a little more expensive than that one.
Joanne, can I ask you a question?
Yes, you can.
I understand that you're very displeased with this whole process, but what would you have as an outcome for this committee? Should we just walk away from the whole thing and leave it piles of dirt?
I think Marguerite, what you said before, that you were going to do what is happening, to see what is underground, which should have been done before.
Right, and that is directly a result of this working group, if I may point that out.
Can you stop interrupting me? That should have been done. The results should have been in before any money was spent to do any kind of design.
So in other words, you would just leave it just the way it is and don't do anything?
Stop interrupting me, please.
Oh, please. All right.
We also should be looking at what kind of budget do we have to do this project, the maintenance of this project, before you start throwing out pretty little concept plans of what in a perfect world we would do. But we will all be paying for this.
I've asked you to please stop being sarcastic about the concept.
I can't help it. I can't help being sarcastic. And you can roll your eyes all you want, but this is my money. And frankly, I think all of you here, all of your money being spent on this. And the public has tried to express numerous times their disgust with this, with their lack of wanting to pay for this. And I don't quite understand why this design committee is proceeding in the timeline it is.
So what would you prefer? Tell me what you want. Tell me what you want, and we'll discuss that.
The prudent thing to be would be to hold off on doing any more design until we know the status of this property. And then you look at design, if that's the route we're going. And I think the number one priority, frankly, should be spending the least of the town's money on this.
So let me understand. Let me see if I understand you. Let me see if I understand you correctly. Let me see if I understand you correctly.
No, the town's money now and in perpetuity, because we will be paying this forever for the maintenance. I think, was it William or maybe it was Kevin who pointed out, I don't know, one of you pointed out the sad repair of some of the public property that we have right now. Walls, all that. So now we're just adding all that. So any design that goes ahead should take that into consideration first off, not as sort of like, oh yeah, and how much will that be?
Now, can I just stop you for 2 seconds? I am sensing a lot of rage coming from you directed at this working group. I am trying to get a park design presented to the Board of Selectmen. That's what they've requested. I really don't feel that we deserve getting a broadside for something that we have not created. I'm not the Department of Public Works. I'm not the Board of Selectmen. I am a citizen just like you. In fact, I'm a library trustee, and my interest in this is to see if we can expand the library land and back. But I really don't think it's valid for you to attack the working group for something that we're not responsible for.
Can I ask you, or maybe Andrew, and I see you're kind of lighted up there, who authorized the expenditure of money to hire Vanessa Hangen?
The select board last Friday.
So it was last Friday, and by today, they have 3 concept plans?
Yes.
Huh. That seems very unusual.
You're being disingenuous. What you're saying is that we did the concept plans before the bill was presented? Yes.
That
The first we
seems
heard
like-
of the bill was last Thursday,
The bill? What do you mean by the bill?
the VHB bill.
So you heard about the bill last Thursday. The timeline seems a little strange here.
No, you're being disingenuous. What are you really saying, Joanne?
I'm saying the timeline
Mike.
seems disingenuous.
Marguerite, I know we were trying to put in a 3-minute time. Is there other people in the audience who wanted to comment?
I don't see anyone else's hands raised right now.
Does Jim Millette want to talk? I'd actually like to hear from her.
Jamilette, would you like to talk?
I've just been listening,
No. Oh, okay.
and I don't think I have any comments yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time, Jamal. I know it's summer, gonna be back in class soon, so thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, there's been a healthy back and forth, and I don't see any other hands raised. And I think the last item on the agenda was the minutes.
And I think
Which we
we
had
agreed to
tabled.
table because they're not ready.
Can we ask for any other people to raise their hand if they wish to speak? I mean, it is a public forum.
Does anyone else wish to speak? Who hasn't already spoken?
Even if they've already spoken, I think they should have the chance to speak again.
Any hands raised? Well, here's Marnie.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Marnie.
So I just want to, I came on late. I was on a conservation meeting earlier. I've only heard the tail end. I'm speaking, Marnie Houlihan, I'm speaking as a resident. I think, unfortunately, you guys are in this precarious situation where you're the face of a working group that's really trying to move things forward. And I think it's very similar to some other challenges that this town faces, and just transparency and candor and feeling that, Marguerite, you mentioned the words in the previous speaker, disingenuous. And I think people just don't necessarily feel like there's a lot of trust happening, and you may not be the face of that. I think, unfortunately, you're mediating a lot of that, and that's a challenging place for you to be. So I just want to, one is just to empathize with where you are right now. It's not a fun place to be, but it's also, I think what we've heard is, I think the challenge is it's hard for the taxpayers to understand what we're doing with this land when some initial things were done with it that weren't necessarily on the up and up. And so now we're trying to backtrack and figure out what is the best course. So while I have no real comment to say, I must admit that as a taxpayer, I am concerned about design plans and are we putting the cart before the horse? Let's figure out what's on the land. Let's help to figure out and all the things that you're trying to do. And I recognize that the land and understanding if it's a burial ground, that's all because of a lot of the work that you guys have done. So I thank you for that and being able to do that and move forward. So I just want to say, I guess it's more of a patience perspective. Maybe we slow down a little bit, but I do think that the town is seeking transparency, and it's not necessarily from your team exactly. I think it's from the broader committees and things that are happening in a town that you have no control over. So that's just my comments. I just want to empathize and say perhaps slow down a bit. And that's all. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you, Marnie. Appreciate it. Any other comments from viewers, from audience? Who is Outcast? I'm guessing, but I'm not sure.
Patricia Burns Fiore just raised her hand.
Okay, go for it.
my earlier comments had nothing against the group of you. As I said before, I do really appreciate the time and effort you've put into and research that you've put into this project. I just do think it is long-sighted at this time.
Deep into the
But
what? Sorry?
it-
Deep into,
I'm sorry. I said I really do appreciate the time and effort that you all have put into this project and the research of it and moving forward. But I do think it is wrong-sighted at this time to be moving forward. As Marnie said, I think that the taxpayers in town have some very large concerns, as she pointed out, about transparency and how our money is being spent. And it is nothing against the group of you who have put so much of your time and effort into this. And I hope it is not all for vain. But I have serious and drastic concerns if this should proceed. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Marguerite, question.
yes.
For comment, can we just say that that this is the last chance to raise your hand to comment?
I see, well, I'm not sure if Patty wants to speak again. Her hand is up, but I see
Pearson.
Pearson again.
Yeah, so going once, going twice. Okay,
But
just
Joanne's got her hand up.
The
Yeah.
hands up.
so one more comment.
I think there's something wrong with I didn't mean, sorry, the raise hand, lower hand. I thought I was lowering it. I didn't have another comment, although I would like to say, if we do, I used to be a landscape architect, and if we get to a point where it seems appropriate that in the timeline of things and ownership of the property and the public, the town, taxpayers are behind doing some sort of design, I have expertise in that matter, and I would be happy to serve, on a panel that reviews designs. But I think that is, as I said before, that's in the future. That shouldn't be done right now. And just a quick comment on the plans as they were proposed, and whoever it was that talked about the noise on the road. It's even the view of the road, and those plans, if you look, it looks as if across from 85, it's a nice wooded area. It's not, it's a broad open path. There would be incredible sight lines to all the traffic. There's all the noise. I mean, there are ways that a design that is well conceived for the exact location that we're talking about would incorporate other things and would consider that. So I think down the road, if we do get to a point where we are proceeding with the design, I'd be happy to serve on a panel about that. But again, as I said before, I think that should be in the future, and that huge consideration should be given to any design with at the get-go, how much all this is going to cost to install and down the road to maintain. Thanks.
Thank you, Joanne. That is nice of you to offer. And
if I put raise hand down, does that mean my hand is lowered? Sorry, when
or you can just talk again. What the heck?
No. So I'm not raising my hand. Okay.
Well,
so
let me tell you just briefly. I came to this working group because the original VHB design to go in this piece of land, as many of us on the working group agreed, looked like a skateboard park. And my thought was, good God, don't let them build this, because it had originally been going to have a playground in the middle, but that was dropped out because it was too close to the road and the kids would be too close to the road. So what I saw there was a design that had a lot of hardscape, and it just was a totally unattractive thing that in my mind was going to be someplace that would get plonked down there and nobody would ever use it because it was an urban park design. So that's why I got involved, because also I think the library landscape flows into this, and it would be nice to have a big swath of green. But I didn't go into it thinking, oh boy, I'm going to do this now and the taxpayers will hate it, but I'm going to do it. It was more like I would prefer not to have that other park there Therefore, I'm getting involved and we're going to see what we can do. And it started out as a memorial. We expanded it. Then it was, let's do the dig. And then St. Mark said, okay, we'll do the dig. And then it was, who owns it? I don't know, but something will have to go there. And I don't want that skateboard park. So that was where I was coming from. And I think we had historical, we had open space, we had somebody from the Board of Selectmen, we had somebody from accessibility, and we all had a deep feeling that we wanted this to be a really good space. I know there was a lot of baggage, I know there was a lot of history, but our hope was we could focus on something good to come out of this, and hopefully the rest of it would sort itself out, because the legal part, I can't control that. But what goes in there and what it looks like, maybe I could have some control over it. So that's sort of where I started, and I think a lot of other people in the working group are in the same place. They were interested in doing something civic-minded, and I know there's been a lack of transparency from a lot of different parts of this town, and I know people are justifiably frustrated by it. But at this point, it was more like a feeling of, can we put something good in there in spite of all of this stuff? And what's good, I don't know. What's good is going to come up in what happens in the working group meetings. And I hope they don't just become opportunities to vent at various, aggrieving parties, because I would like to just get this, even if there are remains there, something is going to have to go in that space. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm just coming from a spot of, I don't want to get involved in the who did what to whom. I just want to see what we can put there. And if you want to help with that because you've got experience, I think that would be fantastic. So that's where I am.
For all of our listeners out there, all 10 attendees, that we do have 2 openings currently on the working group. And you could be one of those lucky people who can be up here as well. So
yes,
apply now.
Applications accepted, right.
On that note, since we have finished comment, should we plan when we're going to have our next meeting?
Yes.
People can look forward to that. Put it on your calendars, folks.
Yes.
Well, to that point, actually, first, we still need to do the minutes. Second, this is a suggestion. Let's wait to see what the dig happens. Let's I would like to report back to the select board on September 7th, and then we'll just take it step by step by step.
So if we meet on Thursday nights, do you want to put a tentative meeting date for the 8th, or do you want to do it to the 15th?
So this is a very tentative date then.
Okay.
You're not going to have anything meaningful
Mm-hmm.
to the day until after the 9th. The heavy equipment is due to come in the 7th through the 9th. So
Freddie wanted to meet to
academic
talk.
until-
Okay, Freddie wanted to meet to talk about the format of the forums, of the public forums. But maybe we should wait until after we get the archaeological information before we even think about it.
That
Yeah,
would be my
that's the-
recommendation.
All right.
The 15th sounds like a good tentative date, subject to change.
Okay, that's good, James. Okay, so 15th, but put it in brackets with a question mark. Good. All right.
And
Thank you,
as for the
everyone.
minutes, we do not have minutes to go over, so I recommend that we table that
Well,
item.
I think that's the minutes are the least of our problems at this point. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Well,
We have to do the
I'm
minutes.
sorry, but without the minutes, we just to keep up with these minutes and make sure we're complying with the Mr. Hegarty's rules. There is one, and I'm sorry, I think James might have spoken. I couldn't. It has to do with my computer. Couldn't hear very clearly, but what was the status of those? And I'm sorry if my question is just totally repetitive.
There are 2 meeting minutes that we have not filed from, I believe, July. I'm blanking on the date, and August 4th.
Hang on a second.
Um,
Okay, so the minutes, we need the minutes for the 28th and the 4th.
Yes.
But those are
And
right.
And we have 45 days out from the.
So we don't have
28th
either.
July.
we
No.
do not.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, can I just jump in and ask a kind of procedural question? And I apologize if I'm confused on this point. So we just had extensive public comment that was on our agenda, but I think I saw this somewhere, my Southborough, like there was something went out from the folks at the townhouse that was announcing this as a public forum, but it really wasn't. I'm not clear who did that or why, and did we just satisfy that? But I don't think so.
That's a very good question.
Sorry.
I don't even really have a great answer to that. That came from the select board meeting.
Right.
Friday morning, which you were there.
I was there.
Had some technical difficulties that interrupted some of my participation, but there were at least 2 select board members who felt we should publicize this upcoming meeting more. So then I worked with the townhouse staff to put together that little blurb, which got put out on Twitter, got put on the town's website. There is the working group charge says there should be 3, and I don't remember whether it's public meetings or public forums. Again, because I drafted several versions of that document, and the one that got approved, that was done in December, when the original charge was to fill in the circular space. The whole idea of that originally was that we didn't know whether there would be a group that would quickly come to a consensus about what would go in the center or not. But some members of the select board felt there should be at least 3 meetings.
Andrew,
okay, so can I finish? Can I finish?
Meeting in
right.
a public forum, just so
Okay. Well, I was talking. Okay. So that's the origin of that. Okay. But then as everything changed, I mean, we have had, Margaret, what do you say, 10 meetings or so? So
14.
I'm more than happy to. I think we've reached this point with these plans, which we don't know whether they're going to go forward. You hear the concerns about the status of the land ownership, etc. I agree that I would be open, certainly, to other forums like this. But then really, I think let's just take it one step at a time. But Kevin, to your question about have we satisfied the 3 public forum rule? I mean, is this a public forum? Like we publicize.
I have the
publicize it
charge
even
right up
more, we
here
could-
if I can read it. The working group should hold at least 3 meetings in a public forum, either in person or by remote participation, i.e. Zoom, etc., at which public comment is solicited and encouraged. The town shall publicize the dates and times of working group meetings, which they certainly have, and encourage public participation, which they probably have not to date. So my feeling is, yes, this was a public forum. I think we should still do 3 forums, then we'll have 3 forums and a meeting that were that the public was notified to attend.
So then how are we going to do that before September 30th and then still have the dig going? I think we just take this step by step and see.
Well, I think there wouldn't be anything wrong with having a forum or 2.
Okay.
That's my sense of it.
So September 30th.
Because transparency has been a problem, as we all know, that I think would be nice to not have any shadow of that hanging over us.
Can I jump in?
Sure, Freddie, what?
Okay, sorry.
I would like to go to my recommendation, which is 1, that we send an email to the selectmen giving the upcoming timing of the dig results, and then having more public input and reviewing more plans or based on that, or discussions that we asked to be later than September 30th, because when you listen to the selectmen's meeting, when they were talking about that, I think it actually said or later if the committee working group asked. And I'd like to recommend that we ask for that, or at least let them know that's a likely possibility. 2, I just want to be clear that all committee meetings, whether it's a working group or a committee, are public. Whether you accept public comment, that's up to the agenda. And I also believe for all of the public forums, if you're going to call it a public forum, there's a little bit of a different protocol where you have a set plan of how you're going to present, what you're presenting, you have a facilitator often to do that, or at least the committee knows what's happening. It's not just we have a meeting and we open it up to public comment. So, and I think it's advertised as a public forum ahead of time, which we can do through all the methods. And I don't know that we need to have 3, because as you read the charge, Marguerite, it said, take public comment. So I think the confusion is what's a public forum versus having a public meeting, which by law, all our meetings are public, and accepting public comment, which you do not have to do when you have a committee meeting that is open to the public, but
Although
you
we
don't have to
always
take.
have accepted public comment. Here's my question.
But it's not been on the agenda like it was this time, which made it a
What do
little
you
bit
think?
different.
What do you think, Freddie, the people of Southborough would be the happiest with? To
I
have
think
3
the people,
forums?
I don't know about 3, but I would start with wait to the dig and then plan our first one and see what happens. I think we'll have more information after the dig results start to come in. And then as we know more, I think personally, I think that we're where we are now. We have these renderings to start with. We can't go back, but I think just put a pause on that until we get some public input, because we don't know what the general public beyond this committee really thinks about what our priorities were. And that's when we first started, you know, I heard some people saying cart before the horse. So maybe we slow down a little bit and catch up so that we can maybe put the horse in front of the cart. That's my recommendation. I don't know how many public forums. I think it depends.
All right, any other comments?
Perhaps I'm a bit confused. I'm looking at something right now that says the St. Mark's Street Park Working Group is holding a public forum Thursday, 8/25 at 7 p.m. on Zoom. The public is invited and encouraged to provide feedback to plans for the space. That went public. It was publicized on the main thing that people read in this town, which is My Southborough. I posted on it on the Facebook Karen share today so that people would know. Just out of the kindness of my heart, I suppose. But and we had a good turnout.
Just say as far as what I was saying before.
Wait, so if you don't mind, I mean, what did we just have that wasn't a public forum? I really don't understand.
I agree.
I don't have a problem.
Okay, and
If
I'll
you want to have
say
a couple
again.
more of these, we can.
Can I speak, please? I don't have a problem with holding more public forums. I see no harm in that, just to make sure that we reach the requirement. But I'm pretty sure this was a public forum. Okay.
You can call it what you want, but this committee never had a meeting where we said this was going to be a public forum, and I object to that. I object to that strenuously, because we are a public commission, or working group, like a committee, and we should make decisions as a committee. I shouldn't just see something on My Southborough that tells me there's a public forum a few days ahead of time. It's not how.
This is getting to.
We're talking about having transparency, and I'm bringing up an issue where we're not transparent.
No,
Just
this
let's
is
do it
getting
better.
too theological. Let's just talk about this way. What do the people in Southborough need to explain what this project is about to them? Do they need 2 public forums more that are official public forums that are just forums?
Marguerite, we lost Freddie, so I'll just ask, in the future, if we are to publicize this as a public forum, we'll just talk about that in the meeting before. Is that okay?
Yes, and I will take credit / blame for this was called a public forum. And if you saw the select board meeting last Friday morning, there was people wanted to publicize this, and that was a Friday, and our meeting was on a Thursday. So that's what happened. But I agree with you. If you want to more closely coordinate exactly how we describe it, I agree. But I'm just trying to convey, I'm trying to do the best that I can.
Thank you, Andrew, and we don't blame you. So don't worry.
No,
about it.
I think
And-
you should never apologize for working as hard as you work for either.
And
All
on
right,
that
so
note-
where are we? Are we going to talk about having a forum later on because we're not putting the cart before the horse anymore?
I think we can plan that at our next meeting because
Let's do
it's just
that.
too early to say.
Yes, we have reached with 2 hours total brain saturation point. I would like to thank the members of the working group who have remained with us. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd also
So
like to,
moved. Sorry, Grant.
Was that Grant? Okay.
no, I was just going to say I'd also like to thank the members of the public who spoke.
Yes, absolutely. And I am looking forward to more conversations. All right, so Grant, did you move or did you second?
I did neither.
Oh, who moved? Was that James?
James moves.
And the second was from
Let's just say Grant. I second.
Grant, and Grant seconded. All right, we've got that down there. All right, trustee Larry, no, working group member Landry, aye. Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Nichols Worley,
Aye.
Mr. Farrington,
Aye.
Mr. Dennington,
Aye.
Mr. Sines.
Hi.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
everyone.
All right.
Okay.